Let's talk about the different ways that we can express a tax rate. First of all, we can express a tax rate as a decimal. We had an earlier problem where the tax rate was 0.559. All right, that's one way to express the tax rate. Now, to change a decimal to a percent, what do? We just move the decimal 2 places to the right and stick a percent sign after it. So as a percent, this is 5.59%, isn't it? Now, if we had a particular problem where the market value were $90,000, the assessment rate were 30%, which is a pretty standard assessment rate, then we'd have an assessed value of 30% times $90,000. Everybody get $27,000 for that? And then if our tax rate were 0.0559 or 5.59%, we could multiply either one of those things times 27,000 to get the property tax for the year, couldn't we? So try multiplying 0.0559 times this, and then multiply 5.59% times that, and we should get the same answer. So that's somewhere between 1 and 2,000. 1509.30, does that sound right? I'm seeing nods, so I'm assuming that's correct. 1509.30, oops, I'm sorry, that's the actual tax, isn't it? Tax rate is 0.0559, and was that 1509.30, is that right? Okay. So that's our property tax. That's annual. That's how much we pay every year. And this property tax goes for schools, fire and police, library, public services, that sort of thing. And this is why property taxes are higher in some places than others. The more desirable a location is, the more people want to live there. Supply and demand says the property tax will be higher. The more people don't want to live there, the property tax will probably be lower. And oftentimes that's tied to a school system, that if you live in that area, you go to that school. So if there's a school that everybody wants to go to, the property values go up, the tax go up, and the tax rates can go up as well. Okay, so we have a decimal, a percent. There's another way this is expressed. This would be per $100 of assessed value. If we said, what's your cost per $100 of assessed value? Well, percent means per 100, doesn't it? So if we're paying 5.59%, we're paying $5.59 on every $100. So to convert from percentage to per $100, it's really the exact same numerical value. We just drop the percent sign and stick a dollar sign on the front of it. Okay, so 5.59% is the same as this decimal, and that's the same as saying we're going to pay $5.59 per $100. All right? Now, what about per thousand? Well, if we're paying a little over $5 for every $100, if we multiply this by 10, how much would we have to pay per thousand? We'd have to multiply this by 10, wouldn't we? And how do we multiply something by 10? What do we do with the decimal? We move it over one place to the right, which is the same as adding a 0 at there, multiplying by 10. So we move the decimal one place to the right, and we get 55.90 per $1,000. Now this is all exactly the same tax rate. We're just expressing it in different ways. And the reason I'm showing you these conversions is because we normally express tax rates in mills. Anybody ever hear of a millage election, where they're asking voters to approve an increase of so many mills in the property tax rate? Well, mill comes from the prefixes, how many millimeters are in a meter? How many milligrams are in a gram? It's 1,000. Okay, so milli means 1,000th. A mil is actually 1,000th of a dollar. That's a mil, is 1,000th of a dollar. What's a penny? It's 100th of a dollar. So this is 1/10 of a cent. Anybody ever see one of those store coupons that says cash value 1/10 of 1%? I'm sorry, 1/10 of a cent? Well, that means it's worth 1 mil. All right, worth 1/10 of a cent. So property tax rates are expressed in mils, and basically, since mils means divide by 1,000, all we have to do is drop the dollar sign on this. This becomes 55.90 mils. So this, if you're paying 5.5%, you're paying 55 mils. Okay? So all these numbers mean exactly the same thing. And there are some exercises in the book where they say use this one and do it, but I want to make sure you know how to do mils. So let's figure this out. Let's say we had an assessed value of $27,000. We'll use our same number. We had an assessed value of $27,000, and the tax rate were 55.90 mils. We normally take it to 2 decimal places on the mils. Well, there's a formula in the book that says to find the tax, you take the assessed value and you multiply it times the mils, and then you divide that by 1,000, since mils means per 1,000. But another way of dividing by 1,000 is multiplying by 0.001. That's how they put it in the book. But that's the same as dividing by 1,000. So let's try this. Let's punch in 27,000 for our assessed value times 55.90, and then divide that by 1,000, and that should give us this exact same number. Does that work? Okay. So it's assessed value times mils divided by 1,000. The book writes it this way because if you multiply by 1,000th, that's the same as dividing by 1,000. Okay. So everybody should get that 1509.30.